This time on episode 263 of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., we discussed The Punisher, Season 1, Episode 7, Crosshairs, and the weekly Marvel news.
Hi, I'm Stargate Pioneer.
And I'm Steven Jondrew, and we're from Better Podcasting, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network.
Just like the show you're listening to now.
The opinions expressed are those of the individual host.
Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
And get ready, because geekiness begins in 3,
2,
1.
You have been granted clearance by Director Alfonso Mack Mackenzie. Stand by for a S.H.I.E.L.D. debriefing. All information to be discussed here is classified and may only be discussed among agents granted clearance by the S.H.I.E.L.D. Director.
Now it's time for your scheduled debriefing. I'm Director SP.
I'm Agent Haley.
And I'm Consultant Michelle.
Welcome to Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's a Marvel Comic Universe fan show. The show is recorded on Sunday, December 30th, 2018, live from the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. studios and broadcast worldwide via www.geeks.live. Come on in and enjoy our live chat as we record. Ladies, happy National Bacon Day.
Woot. I actually had bacon today, even though I didn't know I was supposed to be celebrating.
I did not have bacon today. I'm going to have bacon tonight, though, now that I know that it is National Bacon Day. Haley, you know today is something else, though.
It is New Year's Eve.
So does the party start now, or did it start 2 days ago on Friday night, or when did the party start?
I mean, there was a party last night, but there's like a refractory period, and then there will be more partying starting tomorrow.
I see. Michelle, do you get to partake in some sort of New Year's celebration?
Not really. I mean, my own, but I don't go out and such.
You can't tell but from my voice, I've been sick ever since Friday, so I will not be celebrating. I will be getting to bed early because work is being very demanding right now. But it's still cool to go through the holidays, and I can't wait for the next one to come out. I believe it's Martin Luther King Day, right? So get some extra time there. In the meantime, let's get back to this podcast, as we need to get back to it after a couple of months off. Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a fan-based podcast on the ABC television show Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is now, as we record, in the 32nd hiatus week following the season 5 finale. Ouch. The multiple Marvel Netflix series, which we'll talk about that later, and the Marvel cinematic and comic book universes in general.
Because of Frank's home CrossFit gym.
If you'd like to talk to us about Frank's or your own home CrossFit gym, you can visit our website, legendsofshield.com.
If you want to leave us a voicemail about how much you love CrossFit, you can call us at 844-THE-BUS-1. That's 844-843-2871.
You can visit our Facebook page and share pictures of your CrossFit gym, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Podcast.
You can find us on Twitter at Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D.
And you can find us on YouTube doing our own CrossFit. Not really. At youtube.com/GonnaGeek.
When you're doing CrossFit and you have an Amazon device, you can tell it to enable Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. skill.
And you can join our Discord server chat and start a thread about CrossFit at GonnaGeek.com/Discord.
And remember, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a proud member of the GonnaGeek.com network.
Wow, ladies, it is good to be back. And I trust everybody had a good holiday. This is after the holidays. I mean, like all of the holidays. Like, let's see, what's the middle one in November? Veterans Day and Thanksgiving and Christmas, or whatever you tend to celebrate, and coming up on New Year. So we basically have gone through all the holidays here.
Also, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa.
Right. Whatever you choose to celebrate. Yep.
Boxing Day.
Yeah, that's a big one, especially from our friends in Canada and Australia, New Zealand, and the UK that listen to the podcast. Yeah, that's a big day there. I don't get it. mean, like the day after Christmas? I just, how does that work for shopping?
It's when all the good sales are. Everybody's trying to get rid of everything.
I guess, but I mean, do you give gift cards then?
No, you just buy stuff for yourself.
Oh. So you don't buy as much for other people?
I don't know. I know that there are some people that like do their Christmas shopping then, and then they celebrate Christmas after Christmas.
Oh, like a New Year's weekend. Okay. I guess we don't have to worry about that. So we'll just get on with the podcast now and talk some Punisher. Oh, we're finally getting back to Punisher. We're talking the next episode. And oh, by the way, all 13 episodes of The Punisher, the first season, aired on Netflix November 17th, 2017. So that is now over a year ago. And season 2 is set to air sometime in 2019, which is still next year, even though it's a couple days away from when we're recording here, but it's still next year. So we're still good. I'm feeling okay. I'm going to feel a little less okay when we record next week. But anyway, Haley, who directed this episode?
This one was directed by Andy Goddard. He has 30 directing credits starting in 1998, which include 6 episodes of Torchwood and 1 of Doctor Who, 5 episodes of Downton Abbey, and then into the Marvel stuff, 1 of Daredevil, 1 of Iron Fist, 2 of The Punisher, and 2 of Luke Cage.
So are all names that are going to be harder and harder to say as we go forward in terms of the Defenders series. Now, Michelle, who wrote this episode of The Punisher?
This episode was written by Bruce Marshall Romans, has 7 writing credits starting in 2005, including 1 Falling Skies, 5 Hell on Wheels, 1 Marco Polo, and 1 of The Punisher. And remember, Punisher is based on the Marvel Comics by Jerry Conway, John Romita Sr., and Ross Andru.
All right, so this episode is titled Crosshairs, and we often equate what is going on in the episode to the title of Crosshairs. So, Haley, it's been a while since we've been able to do this. You need to tell me what the meaning of Crosshairs is.
Well, I mean, we saw Frank had Agent Orange in his crosshairs, and he pulled the trigger, and he didn't get his man.
Was that just so suspicious? Like the bullet just like impacted.
I knew it was going to happen. I knew it.
In the glass. And then
because I knew we were only in episode 7 of the series.
Right. And it just stayed there a little bit, and then it fell down. It's like, oh. And you should have known anyway, because it was supposed to be a CIA safe house.
Really, Frank should have known.
Well, okay, so that is the literal meaning of Crosshairs. Was there any other meaning of Crosshairs throughout the episode? Michelle, did you get anything else out of it?
Not really. I mean, unless if you think about how, Russo, tried to get Frank in his crosshairs. Frank in the tunnel was confronted by that other soldier who, kind of had Frank in his crosshairs. So there's like a lot of people aiming weapons at each other. So I guess a lot of crosshair action was going on.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. In particular, the tunnel scene came to mind where Frank was in the guard's crosshairs, and even that didn't pan out for the poor guy. At least he's still alive. So any encounter with the Punisher, you coming out alive, especially when you're on the other end of the gun, is probably pretty good. All right, so we got that out of the way. Let's talk a lot about the fights, because this had one of the amazing fights in it, and it was because there was a smoke grenade that went off in Colonel Bennett's house, and there was a double trap set throughout the episode. We'll have to talk about that a little bit later, but I want to talk about the fight specifically. So the dining room is just full of smoke, and you have these mercenaries coming in with their laser guns or laser sights on their guns, and they really just can't see anything, even if they have night vision goggles, because you're being obscured with the smoke. And it was just an incredible fight that happened there. I think Frank's got it going on. What do you think, Michelle?
Yeah, I always kind of find it funny with the red dot thing, because I always think about my cat, because my cat likes to chase the red dot. Yeah, I thought it was interesting how we got there. Bennett has his, taste and such. it was really cool. Didn't realize that it was all a ruse just to clone a phone.
Right. And it was a ruse on the other side because they wanted to get the Punisher, they wanted to get Frank close to them by the safe house. So they were drawing Frank to them ultimately. At least that's what I'm postulating. Haley, do you think it was a double trap like what I'm saying?
I don't think it was a trap to get Frank to the safe house necessarily. I think they had planned on getting him when he went after Bennett. Bennet's the right guy, right?
Yep, Colonel Bennett.
Morty? Okay. When he went after Bennett, that's when they had thought they were going to get him. I don't know that they knew he was tracking the phone. But I bet they'll tell us in the next episode.
That's what I thought, because it's like, it seems like Micro was like, don't kill Bennett. Use him like as a little ferret that will lead us to the big fish. And I think that's probably what it was. Bennett really thought Frank was just going to kill him. And really, that's what everybody thinks. Everybody, is like, Frank's got a target. When he goes to attack, he means to kill the target. So I think they probably thought, oh, Frank didn't kill the target, so we succeeded.
Well, I'm wondering if they really wanted Bennett. They wanted Frank to kill Bennett, and he didn't. So I'm being a little conflicted right now, because either they wanted Frank to kill Bennett and they were going to get Frank when he came after Bennett, or they knew that he was going to get away and that they were going to draw him closer to Agent Orange, which is what ultimately happened, and that they would prepare to go after Frank there. But I guess that's not as a controlled environment. At least in Bennett's house, you were inside a base, so there was limited egress routes. So, Haley, I agree. We'll probably find out in the end. But either way, I didn't think Bennett was going to be able to come out of this alive. He was short for the world when this whole thing was set in motion.
Yeah. I don't think they cared whether or not Frank killed him. Like, if they did, that was one less thing for them to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
If he did.
Because they were going to do it anyway.
Yeah, but I don't think that they wanted to give up Agent Orange's position. Like, he's prepared for any eventuality. Like, he's going to have crazy security in case of Frank or some other, ghost from his past. Because I don't think Frank is the only skeleton in his closet. So he's going to have that kind of security, regardless of whether he's setting a trap for Frank or not.
Yeah, because Agent Orange seemed kind of like surprised to have that bullet. And I think he was like, wow, I'm glad I really invested in this glass.
Glass plays. Well, we're obviously going to see a confrontation in the future between these two, and that's going to be interesting, especially with the conversation that Russo had with Agent Orange in the safe house earlier. Like, you just wanted to kill him because you didn't want to be reminded that he's the only person that had you scared that you were going to die, sort of thing. And there's probably some truth to that.
Mm-hmm.
So we find out that Dinah's office was bugged, and that was cool, and it was not, because when you're searching for a bug, somebody's going to watch that tape later and they'll be like, what are they doing? And then all of a sudden the camera moves, right? Because she actually pulls it out. So you're going to see that footage.
I think it's just an audio device. I don't think it was video.
Oh, didn't we see him actually watching The Office at one point in time? Like an episode ago?
Yeah, wasn't that a high angle though? I wonder if they got everything.
Oh, good point.
Who knows how many people have that office bugged?
Maybe that was the video feed, and then what they found was the audio feed.
That could be. In any case, though, you guys well know, because you have audio equipment, anytime you grab the microphone, it makes a heck of a lot of noise. So it'll spike on whatever recording that they're doing. So Agent Orange will want to go back and see what they're doing.
But it was also on a bookshelf. So, like, that could have just been like, oh, somebody put a book on the bookshelf.
Yeah, okay. But it's always an issue when you go searching for a bug because you can tip off the other side that whoever's recording or monitoring that you can, about it. And then it can go both ways. Anyway, Dinah was pretty smart. She found it. She figured it out. And then they were able to get it. And she's trying to use Russo against himself. And she's kind of doing an okay job, but they are at a severe disadvantage because they don't know what's going on with Frank. They don't know what's going on with Russo. Dollars to donuts, Dinah has not thought that Russo is in bed with the CIA on this. So they're going to have some tribulations in that office.
Yeah, and Frank is still thinking Russo is on his side. Even Frank doesn't suspect Russo is in bed with Orange.
Because he hasn't watched the other Netflix series.
Yeah, and it's his buddy, man. He'd go to hell and back for him. Talking about that, by the way, Lewis has a very intense episode. He almost kills himself. He has that not one, but two intense conversations with his dad. And now I'm really concerned because his dad's convinced him to change up his game. I don't know what he's going to do with that.
Okay, so I didn't have a chance to rewind and double check. Did his dad say he gave him Ambien? Or was it just some other sleep drug?
I don't remember the exact drug. It was something to help make him sleep, though. And he did not give him the whole bottle.
Right, he gave him two. But I'm thinking, like, you hear all the time about people on Ambien specifically that started, like, sleepwalking and doing all sorts of crazy things because they were taking Ambien.
Oh, maybe.
I'm still trying to figure out how Lewis's story is going to hook up with Frank's.
Yeah, that was another thing that I was wondering throughout this entire thing is how is Lewis going to come back with Frank? Now, he's going to change up his game. He's crazy. He's already killed somebody in cold blood, basically. And he's unstable by any definition. Although he needs help. And there are a lot of people that are trying to give him help. And he's just not receiving whatever it is he needs. And at the end, you still have the story going on with Frank and Russo and Agent Orange, and somehow he's got to hook himself back into that. I don't know.
Do you think he'll go back to Russo, try to work with Russo again?
I think he figures that line is burned.
Well, I'm wondering, like, he's clearly gone over the edge at this point. I'm wondering if he goes after Russo. Or his friend, the counselor, who I haven't seen in a while, whose name I can't remember.
Oh, Curtis?
Curtis. Yeah, like, just goes after these guys. Because he's gone off the edge.
You mean Lewis killing Curtis?
Maybe,
Yeah,
or threatening him.
Yeah, because that would get Frank's attention.
So it was interesting. I actually went down this road. Lewis's dad, we haven't talked about this yet. So Lewis's dad has been in a Marvel property before. He was the major or lieutenant colonel, captain, whatever, in the Iron Man stuff, along with the Colonel Rhodey. And I was wondering if something had happened to him, like something happened to his wife and he got out of the service and then he moved there and it's the same character. It is not. His character's name, at least in Iron Man 2, is Major Allen. And if Lewis's last name is, what's his last name? Wilcott. So there could have been some weird last name, but I just don't change between the two, but I just don't see that.
I recognize the actor, but like the character we've seen so far, it doesn't seem like he has a military background, because I think that would be something he would discuss with his son if he did. And that hasn't come up to this point.
True. Now he was Air Force, so he wasn't necessarily on the ground in the grind, but yeah, Air Force people have their own issues. By the way, the actor's name is Tim Guinee, spelled Guinee, and my apologies if I pronounced that incorrectly. I have a notorious...
It's tradition.
Yeah. So congratulations, you now, Tim, are in the tradition of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D, where I mispronounced your name. But he is the actor that we're talking about, which is Lewis's dad, who was also in the Iron Man series. And unfortunately, it's not continuity in the Marvel Universe. which I don't think matters anymore. We'll get into that.
It's so wide sweeping at this point, it's hard not to reuse an actor.
Yeah, I think they just didn't care. Came to a point where they're like, fine. All right, so Michelle, what have we not discussed that you want to discuss?
I think it's interesting how important Agent Orange thinks he is. I knew he would be egotistical and have a view of self-importance. But for him to be like, our country has too much at stake for him to be exposed, it's like, wow, that's something to say.
Sadly, in government service, you see that quite a bit. I mean, you're seeing it right now with a lot of the generals that are, quote unquote, running the nation now, politics aside. And there was this big deal a couple years ago with these 4-star generals also down in Florida, CENTCOM, whatever, in trouble. And some admirals in the 7th Fleet in the Pacific running into issues. So I don't think military men are necessarily immune to what's going on, but he is definitely Agent Orange. I don't know if he's got military background or not. I would guess not, but he's got that same sort of egotistical, only I can save the nation sort of thing going on. And we're just seeing that more and more nowadays. And it's sad, but it's, I guess, what happens.
And we were right about Russo getting all the jobs because he was working with Agent Orange. Agent Orange is like, if you don't help, there's no more contracts for you. There's no more business for you.
I was thinking about that because we've false recorded this episode. We tried to start recording this episode about 4 times now. So I've seen this episode many, many times. And in that particular scene in the safe house where Russo's on the couch in the den or study or office or whatever that room is, and that comment is made from Agent Orange to Billy, I tend to give Billy a little bit more credit. Like, okay, so that would tear down what he has right now. But I think Russo has enough talent that he could go somewhere else and make it on his own. It might take him longer, but he could eventually get there. So I don't think he's as tied to Agent Orange as this episode portrays it to be, but that's just my reading of it. Haley, did you think the same thing, or am I out on a limb?
I wasn't thinking too much about it at the time, but like he's been doing this long enough now that he has his own contacts. He doesn't need Orange to make connections for him. Like, he can do it himself.
I guess the only thing is Agent Orange would have significant amount of power being the deputy director of operations for the CIA, that he could make stuff not happen for him.
Billy could go work for a different country as a contractor.
Probably, but then Agent Orange would send a hit squad after him.
Like, Billy doesn't have private security.
Well, he basically is his own right now. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, and Haley, we'll get to you in a second, is Lieberman. And he was just all excited, like, okay, we're going to do this. And I'm going to get my family. And they were talking about, well, what they would tell Sarah or not along the way. But he was this is the end game. This is going to all end right now. And I can go back to my family. That's not happening at the end of the episode. So I'm very curious as to what's going to happen with David Lieberman in the next episode, Micro, because his dreams are kind of shattered right now after what happened. So Haley, is there anything else that you observed in the episode that we haven't talked about?
Not that I can think of.
Is the series everything that you wanted to so far?
This wasn't really a series that I was looking forward to. I mean, that's why I haven't watched way ahead, because at this point I might as well just watch it as we're recording, but it's not something that I was really chopping at the bit for. So it's not a bad show. It's a good show. It's just not necessarily the type of show that I would watch if it weren't tied to the Marvel Universe.
I was expecting a lot more brutal killings than we've actually seen. I mean, there's been brutality, but it hasn't been constant gore the entire time. So I was expecting something a little bit different.
It started with a lot of brutality, and then it feels like there's kind of a lull, and then I bet that kicks up again as we get to the end of the series.
So, Michelle, you have a note in here about predictions for the next episode. Do you have any good ones?
I think Micro's going to flip out, as you said. Frank and Micro will probably argue again about how Micro has it, wonderful because his family's still alive and they always have this conversation. It seems like Frank is like, your family's still alive and you should be talking to them and they should know. Yeah, just more of that. I know this is episode 7 and there's 13. So we're at basically the halfway point. So yeah, I think we need to move into like the ramping up of how Frank, because eventually the end of this series, because there's a season 2, they have to get Frank to a point where he can be alive again. So I guess he's probably going to end up helping Madani somehow, maybe.
I could see that.
He could be a fugitive in season 2.
Yeah, but he's a fugitive now.
Well, he's dead now.
Yeah. But he's a dead and fugitive-ish dead. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like it's, I mean, he's still going to be outside the law because it's still the Punisher, but I guess somehow get him alive or something.
Okay. I think that Agent Orange is ultimately going to be the big bad here. I don't think we're going to see anybody else.
Do you think it's going to be Agent Orange or do you think it's going to be Russo? Because I think it might pivot to Russo.
Well, also, yeah, okay, good point. It might ultimately pivot. Yeah, okay. It could. You're right. But I think keeping Agent Orange in there as long as possible will benefit the series.
See, I don't think Agent Orange is that compelling of a villain. Like, I think he's very generic bad guy. He doesn't even necessarily need to have a name, you know? Whereas Russo, you've got the whole, they used to be friends and then, Russo betrayed what they stood for and betrayed Frank. And that's a more interesting story to tell.
Yeah. All right. You think anything's going to happen between Dinah and Sam?
No.
I hope not. Men and women can be friends.
And in general, I'm not a fan of workplace relationships. I think it's a bad idea.
Yeah, I tend to think this is more of a buddy cop relationship between the two of them. But they are both single, so.
No, she's banging Russo.
That's been taken off the table temporarily.
I that was inappropriate. I'm not going to say that.
All right. I was going to ask if a yes or no question and had to do with Frank. Oh, okay. I remember what it is now. Yes or no? Do you think we're going to get a Punisher salmon ladder shirtless scene?
No.
No, but I want one.
I think you'll get more shirtless pull-ups.
It's close. That'd be close. Yeah. We haven't had that yet, so.
We just had shirtless pull-ups in this episode. What are you talking about?
Oh, I thought he had a shirt on. I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, no.
All right.
Hey, if Matt Murdock, we have to see his, shirt off with all the bloody and stuff. It's Marvel tradition. Well, at least Marvel Netflix tradition, which is, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, which is coming up really soon, actually. So next Sunday, we'll talk about the next Punisher episode, which is actually the 8th episode of the first season called Cold Steel. And we'll see as we progress to the end. As Michelle mentioned, we are on the downward hill in the season now, running into the end. Meantime, Haley, if our listeners want to catch something else that's pretty snazzy on our network, where would you send them to?
Well, they could check out the On the Bubble podcast, which is discussing Timeless. NBC's Timeless has spent the majority of its broadcast run on the Bubble, but now fans are getting a 2-part series finale coming December 20th, 2018, which was actually a couple weeks ago now. But how did such a loved show find itself struggling for a renewal? Why the 2-part finale, and what, if anything, did Timeless fans have to do with saving the show?
So once again, that is On the Bubble, episode number 33. Well, guys, we take a few weeks off here and there because of stuff that has happened, and nothing at all happened in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, the worst thing ever happened the day after we recorded last.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have to start with sad news, which is Stan Lee passed away. He was 95. And for those of you who we're comic book fans and we understand like the importance of Stan Lee. If you would like to know just how far-reaching he's gotten, my mom, who doesn't read comic books, and when she read comic books, it was Batman, so no Marvel, no anything. She heard about this and she immediately knew who he was. And I think that's something that's, amazing that's happened really in the past 10 years, just how influential and known Stan Lee got.
I was at work this past week, and a lot of the news things on the cable news, whatever, have been playing end of year 2018, and there was a segment of the people we lost. It was actually a pretty profound segment this year. Every year you lose a lot of important people, and this year was no exception to that. We did happen to lose Stan Lee this year as well, and in the entire segment, they took a lot of time to go over Stan Lee and his importance to a lot of people, a lot of different generations. And he got the most airtime out of everybody. And that even includes President Bush, who passed away after Stan Lee did. So that is saying something, where an entire news organization is giving him a lot of airtime for that. He was 95. He was involved in comics for a very, very long time. Very instrumental in a lot of the things that we talk about on this show. And while it was really sad to hear about it, on the other hand, it's 95. That's an incredible life.
Mm. And honestly, his wife died last year, I think.
Yeah.
I did not expect him to live long after her passing, just because couples like that have been together for 70 years, a lot of times when one of them goes, the other one goes shortly after.
It's very true. And I don't think there was a lot of people that we know that weren't affected by this. But in retrospect, it's just great to celebrate. And we're almost 2 months removed right now. It's just great to celebrate everything that he is. And fortunately, everything that he worked on is still in play right now. It's probably at one of the greatest peaks that has ever been in comic book universes. And we get to ride that peak for as long as it'll go here. And it's all because of him. His cameos are not going to go away. They'll make sure that he is involved at some level in a lot of these properties. Probably a lot of photographs of him up on walls and stuff like that. But I tend to think that we'll see him around for a little bit as well. I'm curious as to what his cameo will be in Endgame as we get closer to that this year, and Captain Marvel. I have to believe that he's in both. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Well, moving on into, some also sad news. First it was Iron Fist, then it was Luke Cage, and now it's Daredevil. After 3 seasons, Netflix has canceled Daredevil, not Marvel. It's been made clear that this was a Netflix decision.
I gotta admit, I was a little shocked about this. I thought that Daredevil was going strong. Season 3 came out, and although we don't see ratings, it's come out since, by the way, that Daredevil was Netflix's second highest rated show, by the way. I saw a couple of news articles about that. And I was surprised that Netflix was willing to let this go, because it was part of everything else, and this fight between the two companies and streaming rights and everything. It still shocks me to this day that Netflix got rid of at least one series that was guaranteed to make them money.
Well, I believe I've heard since then that it's not just the Marvel properties, it's licensed material in general. Netflix wants to become less reliant on that and have more of their own content, that they own the license, they own the creative process, they own everything involved with it, just for the sake of their own business.
And I could see that because of the whole thing that we went through with The Expanse this past year as well, where Sci-Fi only had the first run rights to it and then didn't have the rights to re-air it in the United States after that, which is amazing to me that they allowed it to be on. And the ratings weren't all that good live for The Expanse either. So Sci-Fi wasn't getting a good deal out of it, yet probably the strongest sci-fi series ever to air gets canceled. Now, eventually Amazon Prime picked it back up. Unfortunately, I don't see Charlie Cox as Daredevil character being picked up anywhere in the Marvel Universe. I think character of Daredevil will live on, but I don't think Charlie Cox's character of Daredevil will live on. I think he's done.
No, I believe I heard that there's a 2-year moratorium on on-screen presence of the character. So by the time they can bring it back, I think they would have to use a different cast.
And I feel for the actors who, I guess in the contract, they can't appear in like either another Marvel property or a similar property. So some of the actors who were signed on, I guess for season 4, like they can't get certain work now. That's just kind of awful.
Yeah, but it makes sense from Marvel's perspective because, they don't want the same actor playing multiple characters in their connected universe.
Yeah, and I actually I had a guest spot on the bubble when Josh was talking about Daredevil. And one thing that I brought up on that show over there, and I still believe it to this day, is that Disney, who's the parent company over the Marvel, they had some issues with Star Wars, meaning there was too much Star Wars out there at one time. And that is the same company then that has Marvel. So they might have been thinking, okay, wait a minute. We've got this Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show on ABC. We've got this Hulu stuff going on with Runaways. We've got this Fox stuff with The Gifted. And there's still an acquisition going on between Fox and Marvel or Disney right now. So those character rights are in flux back and forth between the mutant characters or whatever. There's just a lot going on in the Marvel comic book screen universe. And they might have been thinking, we have Disney Plus, there's going to be some shows over there, and then we have Hulu and Netflix. It doesn't benefit us. So we're not going to make a big push to keep these series on there. And that gets into making it easier to connect back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So if they weren't making it easy to connect back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like we talked about in this episode with Tim Guinea, as an example, then you have a situation where you're becoming more and more disconnected, and then fan interest starts to wane over all of it. And I think that played a small part in everything as well. And I think we're going to see some more of that. I think we're going to see some contraction of Marvel properties across the board because of that. But again, Michelle, I'm completely on board with you. Marvel, Disney did not have anything directly to do with this cancellation. This was Netflix's decision. But I can't help but think that Marvel/Disney had a small part in it.
Yeah, which means I know we got Punisher season 2 coming up. I'm just sort of waiting for the other two because now the only ones that are still active are Jessica Jones and Punisher.
Yeah, and I definitely see on Gonna Geek show, I said within 30 days of airing, you'll hear of a cancellation between the two. And both Steven and Chris over there said, I don't think it's going to be 30 days. I think it's going to be less time than that. But it's going to be shortly thereafter. I don't know how long it is.
Does Jessica Jones have a season next year?
Yeah, they're in production right now.
I would imagine it would be after they release those episodes, they'll announce the cancellation.
So the question is how close to releasing the episode to the cancellation? because it's a foregone conclusion in my mind that they are both going to get canceled after their next seasons air.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're going to start seeing a lot of leaks and stuff before the episodes air.
Yeah.
Well, on to better news. We have a new Captain Marvel trailer where she is kicking more butt, especially of the old lady.
We get to see more of that because the first time we saw it, it was just, it wasn't enough. You just had to trust them that there was something behind it. But now with this full trailer, you see a little bit more of the scene and you're like, oh yeah, totally. The old lady totally deserved it. So that was good. Is it a scroll? Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Captain Marvel. I can't wait to see. It's going to be fun spring. This comes out in March, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
National Women's Month.
And another movie that's going to be coming out afterwards, and we're getting more trailers for, and that's Avengers 4. And we have a full thing. It's called Avengers Endgame.
Guys, looks so good.
I am a little ramped up to see it now. I was not the biggest fan of Infinity War, especially how it ended, not just the snap, but everything around it. So I'm curious as to how they're going to pull this off. And the part of the trailer that really brings me back in, that they have a little fun with, is Ant-Man outside the Avengers compound, right? So it's like, oh, okay, I can get back on this train with Scott Lang saying, hey guys, remember me? I'm here.
I somehow got out of the quantum realm on my own. And
spoilers, some of us haven't seen Ant-Man and the Wasp yet.
I think we're beyond the moratorium. You need to see it. It's on Blu-ray.
I know. I have it. I'll watch it after we finish recording, guys.
Yeah, I'll believe that when I see it.
And something else connected with the Avengers, Marvel has said that Loki was mind controlled in the first Avengers movie. What do we think of that revelation?
Sure, Jan.
I'm 50-50 on this, because on one hand, it's like, oh yeah, I think we even talked about it when we reviewed the movie, that how could you have this staff and not be affected by it? But at the same time, it's just so convenient right now because of the Loki series coming out that they're trying not to villainize him. And I think we're past that right now, but we're trying not to villainize him so that we could have more people watch the series. And it's, I just have to scratch my head. Now, they did not come out with a big announcement. They literally changed the character's wiki page, their official Marvel wiki page. And that's how it came out.
I think it's retconning. I think they want Loki to be a sympathetic character. And you have an arc of him going from a straight up villain to a more sympathetic character. You have that in your series. I don't know why you would do this. But they want him to have been relatable the whole time, I guess. I don't know.
But he always was.
Yeah.
I think with Loki, it's interesting that I've always stated that I think one of the biggest Marvel villains, in the movies, is Odin. Because if you think about it, Odin lied to Loki, which led Loki to his path. He really wasn't that great of a dad to, Thor, who knows? And oh yeah, by the way, he completely lied about them having a sister. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, when I die, you're going to meet your sister, so peace out. He's just awful.
He really is the worst.
There are bigger villains in the Marvel universe, but we just haven't seen him.
I think he's the worst dad.
The worst?
Ever.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll get him a coffee mug. World's worst dad. Or universe's worst dad.
I guess, Thanos is a dad too, so
he's a pretty bad dad.
Yeah.
All right, listeners, chime in. Who's the worst dad, Odin or Thanos?
Or more generically, who is the worst dad in the Marvel universe?
Yeah. But I feel like we've got some front runners.
Yeah. One could also, if we're going to expand it to the Marvel, there's been some talk about Xavier, but he's not really the dad. He's like the leader, but...
Yeah, we'll have to qualify here. We're talking about a legitimate father that has had offspring.
For right now, we're talking specifically in the MCU.
All right, so you're going to limit it to
Maybe we'll do a broader poll at some other point. But for right now, Hit us up. Let us know. MCU's worst dad.
There's Star-Lord's dad.
He's a pretty bad dad.
Yeah, so there are some candidates out there. All right.
I don't think he's as bad as Thanos and Odin. I don't know. I mean, Odin is responsible for like Loki and the whole, Ragnarok situation. Thanos did sacrifice his daughter to get a stone. Yeah, it's very subjective.
Here's the thing about Odin. It's like, he's not portrayed as a villain, but he does bad dad stuff for no apparent reason. Like, you could be honest with Loki. You don't have to lie to him his whole life. You could tell your sons that, hey, you had a sister, she was batshit crazy, so I had to lock her up. Like, there's no reason for him to be as bad of a dad as he is. Like, Thanos wants to take over the world, and he has to sacrifice his daughter to do it. Star-Lord's dad is just, like, egomaniacal, crazy, wants to take over the universe. So, like, he'll sacrifice however many children he has to do it. Why is Odin such a crappy dad?
Because he's a Viking? I mean, I've been watching the Vikings, by the way, on History Channel.
I haven't seen the new season yet.
Oh, it's good. It's good so far. Yeah, it hasn't waned at all. I thought the series was just going to go by the wayside after
the battle at the end of the last half season.
Well, yeah, but what's his name? Lothbrok.
Ragnar.
Lothbrok.
Yeah, I thought the series was over after that, and yet they keep on reinventing it to just
It's still a good show, but I miss the characters we used to have. I don't find the sons as compelling.
Oh, it's not the sons.
As Ragnar.
It's the other characters that are compelling.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they made it just Lagertha all the time, that would be fantastic.
You're going to be disappointed a little bit in
They're going to kill her,
Lagertha.
aren't they? Jerks.
I'm going to spoil it for you. They have not killed her yet.
Okay.
I am current on it, but that went through my mind.
But she's like, her and Floki are all that's left of the first generation of characters on the show. So I feel like they can't hang around that much longer.
Yeah, Floki's got his own weird stuff going on.
Floki's crazy.
Yeah.
Hey, he found Iceland. Come on.
He did, but he's got this, weird Vision Quest thing going on all the time, so.
Well, that's all I have for the news.
All right, and with that, we are going to go ahead and pop a smoke grenade and run the way out. And if we hit you with a little statuette, that's your fault. All right. We are headed out, and it has been fun to get back and record with you ladies. I can't wait for the rest of this series of The Punisher, because now I'm invested. Now I want to see what happens with Billy and with Agent Orange.
So thank you, everybody, for listening. Don't forget to chime in on Twitter or Facebook or with a voicemail or something and let us know who the MCU's worst dad is. This is important information for us to have.
I'd like to thank everyone who listens and gives us feedback. We really appreciate it.
We do, and hopefully we will have Agent Oren with us back next time. Until next time, I'm Director SP.
I'm Agent Haley.
And I'm Consultant Michelle.
Bye. See everybody next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you want to leave us feedback, go to gonnageek.com and you will find all our contact information and other shows. You can also visit legendsofshield.com where you'll find our complete archive of podcasts. The music heard on this podcast is by Kevin MacLeod, found at incompetech.com, and also artists on pond5.com and audiojungle.net. The opinions heard on this podcast are those of the individual hosts and do not represent Stargate Pioneer Productions, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D, or Gonna Geek. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D is the property of the Disney Corporation, Marvel Studios, and ABC. No infringement is intended. Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is copyright 2013 through 2019.